Liam is living the good life, or so it seems. His cruise ship docks on shore at the apex of its journey. Its passengers spill onto the sunny beaches, ready for a day of frolicking in the sun. For 42-year-old Liam of Brooklyn, New York, it's the idyllic day away from the bustle of the big city. He enjoys a last taste of summer with his family before heading home. But later that night, Liam's trip will take a turn for the unexpected, leaving many unanswered questions. Because tonight's the night that Liam falls ill before seemingly vanishing into thin air, never to be seen again. What happened to Liam? Has he had an unfortunate accident? Or was a devious scheme, a murder at sea afoot? Who would want him dead? And why? A beautiful autumn day in paradise as this modern ocean liner with its 2,000 passengers and 900 crew aboard embarks on a cruise around the Caribbean. For many, it's the trip of a lifetime, but for Liam, it's the last trip he will ever take. Joining Liam aboard is his 17-year-old daughter, Martha, Liam's father, William, and his cousin, Caleb. It seems impossible in the moment, but these family members will soon be the last to see Liam alive. Liam is just like any other father, providing a stable home for his nearly adult daughter, Martha. He works as a mechanic and is known for being the most reliable of employees.
Liam was a very kind, very gentle person. He just had a love for his family. He just adored Martha, his daughter. He just thought that she was the greatest. He was always looking out for her. He was a real protector for her.
Like many, he still manages to make ends meet. Remaining a good neighbor and keeping his small place in top form is a priority for him. It's around this time that the family is introduced to a new acquaintance. Joe quickly befriends Martha. Even though he's in his late 20s, the two hit it off. Introduced through Liam's cousin, who went to high school with Joe, the two already seem inseparable, what some would call kindred spirits.
You don't always know who somebody is or where they're from, what their background is, but when there's a mutual friend or a mutual acquaintance, you're instantly put at ease with the other person. You have less reason to fear them or distrust them.
Around here, Joe is known for his generosity with both Liam and Martha. On more than one occasion, he buys them gifts, usually jewelry for her and expensive sports cards for him. At first, it strikes Liam as odd. Joe assures him that he has the money to do it. But for Liam, the spending spree is beginning to sound alarm bells.
Just talking with Liam, he was not happy with that relationship. He had his reservations about Joe and what his intent was. You kind of wonder how two people with such big age differences would get together. And he's adoring her with gifts, and what's the other motive that might be there?
He begins to worry there's more to Martha and Joe's friendship than he first assumed. He begins looking into Martha and Joe's relationship further, he finds out his daughter may be romantically involved with Joe. Wanting to protect his daughter, Liam decides to put a stop to it. It all comes to a head as Liam confronts Martha about the relationship. Little does he realize he may be deepening the bond between his young, impressionable daughter and the adult Joe.
I think it's very common for young people, especially young women, to find older men attractive. The older men, they have cars, they have houses a lot of the time, they have money, so it seems really exciting, and it's the taste of that adult life that teenagers really want. But understandably, this is going to be very upsetting for a parent. The parent is going to be wondering, okay, what's this older man interested in my little girl for?
Well, as a parent, your child never really grows up in your eyes, so you're always going to be somewhat distrustful of somebody new coming into their life, and it's an intimate relationship. The legal status comes into question when a person who's under 18 dates a person who's over 18, depending on the jurisdiction they're in. That creates more conflict.
It wouldn't be the last time Liam would confront the two about their relationship. But the family moves forward despite the conflict. It isn't long before the relationship seems under control, at least from Liam's standpoint. It's a day of celebration. Liam's father, William, arrives at the apartment with news. Liam's cousin, Caleb, got free tickets for a cruise, one on a radio station by a friend and given to him. Caleb can take any two friends with him on this cruise, and he's picking Liam and William.
I was just full of excitement to hear opportunity to go on a cruise. I don't go on very many, and I was just pretty excited about it.
But Liam then discovers the tickets are given to Caleb by Joe, the same man he's been attempting to keep away from his daughter.
When we found out Joe was the one that was providing this cruise, it was concerning why you would give all of this.
William is skeptical, but after speaking with Joe and knowing he won't be on board the ship, Liam believes it's another one of his generous gestures.
We had some apprehension about it, but, cruise was there. We might as well go as a family and enjoy our time.
I would be very suspect if someone were to give me tickets to a cruise. That's a big gift. I think there has to be some sort of relationship there for someone to feel comfortable accepting this. There's almost like, well, what is the other person expecting in return for this gift?
You always have a gut instinct about a person. You know your child as a parent better than anybody else. You know what they like, you know who they're drawn to. So when a person who you don't trust comes into the picture, you instantly feel uneasy about it and you fear for your child.
Liam is feeling unsure about leaving Martha behind with Joe, so he decides to buy her a ticket and take her on the cruise. As the group embarks on their cruise, Caleb informs them that Joe's brother Corey and his girlfriend Samantha are on board the ship as well. They are excited to meet everyone.
When we first got to meet them, didn't connect why they are on this cruise ship as part of this group of us. There was a suspicion that there was something other than just the cruise happening.
Everyone's got gut instincts that warn us when there's something wrong. Unfortunately, most of us don't pay attention to them, or we tend to override them and talk ourselves out of them. So here's Liam, he's got that gut feeling that something's wrong, but his dad just convinces him to go with the flow and not worry about it, and that happens all the time, unfortunately. We're told we should always listen to our gut, but very few people do, sadly.
But soon it becomes clear that Liam's concerns are warranted.
As we started into the cruise, Liam was starting to feel sick, and it just seemed like he either just couldn't handle things or there was something else that might be attributing to his sickness.
He begins to experience an illness that inexplicably strikes him, later causing him to disappear from the boat entirely. What's happened to Liam? Has he had an unfortunate accident? Or Is a devious scheme, a murder at sea afoot? Who would want him dead? And why? Liam is on a family cruise with his daughter Martha, his father William, and cousin Caleb, celebrating after his cousin scores free tickets to a fantastic vacation. They're given the tickets by Joe, a family friend, but one Liam is none too keen about. The relationship between Liam and his daughter has been tense lately, and he's hoping the vacation brings them closer together. As the ship sails away, the group gets settled and makes a plan for their first night aboard. But before hitting the main deck for the festivities, the family checks into their rooms. To Liam and Martha's surprise, his cousin Caleb says they should have the nicest room of them all. And so they enter a modern cruise ship suite with a beautiful balcony overlooking the ocean. It's the only room of the bunch to have this feature.
Talk about wooing someone, right? Liam's got this gorgeous ocean view. He's on the balcony. So even if he had misgivings about the cruise to start with, this is a special treat for him and his daughter. For a father and daughter that are having problems, having a fractured relationship, this could really work to heal their bond and strengthen their relationship. It should work to repair any friction they had between them.
Regardless of why Caleb gave the two the suite, Liam enjoys the view before having the time of his life aboard the ship. Meanwhile, later that night, Liam's cousin Caleb insists he not worry about the cost of the cruise, and that all the incidental expenses of the trip are on him. It's a free ride, so enjoy it. Early on in the trip, Joe's brother Corey and girlfriend Samantha make friends with the entire family. They put Liam at ease over their presence aboard, saying it's a complete coincidence, even though not long ago, Liam confronted Joe about the relationship he's having with his daughter.
Liam was not happy with Joe. He didn't like what he was doing, like he was trying to butter her up with gifts and everything. He was not happy with that type of relationship.
When the confrontation took place, Joe reportedly turned to Martha to tell her not to worry about the conflict. He was going to take care of it. But now aboard the cruise, the relationship seems to be mended between Liam and his daughter. Besides, this trip is a cause for celebration. This is about the mending of his strained relationship with his daughter, while spending time with the family. Liam puts his cares behind him to enjoy the trip to its fullest. In the morning, the ship will dock, marking the apex of their journey. Liam and his family are all excited to enjoy a day on the beach together. For 42-year-old Liam of Brooklyn, New York, it's the idyllic day, enjoying a last taste of summer. He even manages to spend a bit of time by himself.
Well, as an investigator, the primary thing is motive. You want to know why a particular event takes place. One of the best ways to find out why something takes place is to look at everything leading up to that moment. Who was in play? What was in play? Where were they when certain things were done or said? Who else was involved or who else may have seen various interactions? So that timeline is critical to an investigator.
As the sun sets, the gang plans to keep the festivities going. That night, going out together to celebrate a fun cruise with new friends. But as the night continues, Liam once again questions Corey and Samantha's presence aboard. Something about them isn't adding up. Again, he confides in his father William that they seem to be up to something not good.
Liam keeps getting this nervous reaction that there's something not right, this gut instinct, that there's something really strange about this couple. So he would be on high alert, he would have a lot of anxiety, he wouldn't feel as comfortable, he might be tense, he might be more protective of his daughter. So all of these things could be coming into play with him right now, where he's really concerned and really worried, and that anxiety is feeding off into the people around him a bit. And plus, it's a cruise ship, so there's nowhere for him to go. So even if he is feeling a high level of anxiety and he doesn't like these people, he doesn't really have anywhere to go where he can really separate himself that much.
It is early on in the evening when Liam begins feeling ill. He complains of stomach pains, wondering if it was just something he ate not agreeing with him. Martha comes over, telling her dad he should go see the onboard doctor. But Liam insists he just needs to lay down for a while. He may have had too much sun and drink. That, coupled with being at sea, he's likely just seasick and a bit dehydrated. They decide to move the party to Liam and Martha's room, as they have the biggest cabin with the best view. Shortly after, Liam's dad also starts to feel unwell, with symptoms that mirror Liam's.
We were in a room and Caleb seemed like very persistent on us having more to drink than normal. I told him I don't drink beer, but he kept on being forceful. Not drinking enough water during the day, I just felt that I had possibly got dehydrated. I just wasn't feeling well. Martha said, "I'll get you some water, maybe that'll make you feel better." Samantha said, "Come out on the balcony." And I went out with Samantha and I was waiting for that glass of water and hoping that that would help me feel much better. While I was out there in the balcony, Martha did give me that glass of water. Took a few sips of it and I felt so much worse. My stomach was just not doing well.
Nothing feels worse than being on a vacation and starting to feel ill. But unfortunately, on cruise ships in particular, this is very, very common. We got people in close quarters, eating the same foods, touching the same things. So at this point where Liam's feeling ill, he's not going to think anything strange about that. And then when his father starts not feeling so well, that would just be a natural thing because they're spending time together. Liam's sick, so the chances that he's going to pass that on to his group are pretty high.
I just said to them, I got to go back to the room and lay down, and kind of passed out for a while.
Surprised he blacked out from the previous night of dehydration. The next morning, William returns to his son's cabin. But when he gets there, his knocks go unanswered. At 8:22 that morning, William reports to the cruise ship crew that his son Liam is not answering his door, fearing that his health has taken a turn for the worse. But as William arrives back at his son's cabin door, he opens it to find Liam is not there. He has seemingly vanished into thin air. Liam, a mechanic from Brooklyn, is on a cruise that was gifted to him by Joe, a man who's been trying to get close to his daughter Martha. But once on board, Liam's health takes a turn for the worse. Luckily, he's traveling with his next of kin and close relatives, which includes his daughter, father, and cousin, as well as 2 family acquaintances. And so, everyone decides to move the festivities into Liam's suite. But soon, his dad William also falls ill and blacks out. William's blackout seems ill-timed, as the next morning, Liam is missing from his room. William fears something terrible has happened to his son. What happened to Liam that night, and where is he now? When William questions his nephew Calum can't shed much light on the situation. He says he went to bed shortly after William did.
When I met up with Martha, I says, "Where's your dad?" And she didn't seem too concerned about it. She just said, he probably met up with some lady friend that he told me about. Maybe he's off with her somewhere. I don't know where he is.
Is it another passenger that Liam has had a rendezvous with? Could he turn up at any moment? But William soon gets confirmation that his concerns are warranted. A late anonymous tip comes in that a body may have gone overboard the night before at 1:30 a.m. This leads the crew to conduct a passenger search. But once they determine that Liam is the missing passenger, the crew decides to not call the Coast Guard due to a lack of evidence. Could this have been Liam going overboard?
Anywhere you're exposed to the open air, whether it be a balcony or the deck, you're a long way from the water. You could be many stories high. So even water creates an incredible impact when you hit it from that distance. So most people would probably die from the impact with the water.
I would think that if you were a savvy criminal, you would have checked out the ship and you would have seen which parts of the deck have no cameras. You would have been aware of the ship's coming and goings and seen when it's busy, when it's not. And then in the cover of darkness, you could go out in a place where there's no cameras on the ship, in a blind spot, per se, and dump the body overboard.
But the staff on board the ship cannot confirm that a splash into the sea was definitely seen. Was it even Liam, or anyone for that matter, who went overboard? Could the mystery woman Liam supposedly met on board be responsible for him going missing? Or does she have information that could help track down Liam's whereabouts? And did Liam take the mystery woman back to his cabin that night, sending his daughter Martha to Corey and Samantha's room? As the ship docks, a final call over the intercom system fails to turn up Liam. Nearly 36 hours after being reported missing, it's entirely possible Liam's killer is walking off the boat scot-free. As the passengers leave, coming aboard to investigate is the local police department to determine whether Liam's disappearance is a suicide or the result of foul play.
Cruise ships sail under different flags.
But that flag may not be the country where the cruise ship is owned or the cruise ship company is owned. That flag determines what laws the passengers are subject to.
And it also determines how investigations are handled upon the ships.
Investigators comb through Liam's cabin, hoping something will turn up a much-needed clue to his disappearance.
If there's no indication that an actual crime has been committed, there's no reason for anybody to think that they shouldn't clean something up or they shouldn't move an item that may seem out of place. But if it was actual evidence, now that evidence is gone forever.
In this case, when they go in, they don't know that anything's happened, just Liam's not there, but there's no body, there's no sign that anything bad has happened, there's no sign of a struggle. So if you stumble upon a crime scene and you don't know that it is a crime scene at first, there's always the concern that you might have moved a piece of evidence without knowing, or maybe even destroyed a piece of evidence without knowing, contaminated the crime scene in some way, made it more difficult for authorities to really tell what happened to the person who's missing.
Meanwhile, investigators in Brooklyn uncover something strange at Liam's residence. While he was enjoying his vacation away, his apartment was broken into and he was robbed. But there was no forced entry, so whoever robbed his place seemingly had a key. Liam, a mechanic from Brooklyn, is on a pleasure cruise in the tropics. It's a perfect vacation with family that was won by a family friend, until suddenly, Liam seemingly vanishes into thin air. Liam's father, William, reports him missing, though Liam's daughter Martha shows little concern. It's not until the report of a man overboard that William suspects the worst-case scenario for his son, that he's missing at sea.
Cruise ships are massive vessels. You're a long way from the water. You could be many stories high. Even water creates an incredible impact when you hit it from that distance. So most people would probably die from the impact of the water.
With Liam missing and no definitive answer whether he's dead or alive, back home in Brooklyn, investigators learn that his apartment has been robbed. It's an event that just isn't adding up.
Typically, if there's no forced entry in a reported robbery or break-in, one would believe that somebody has access to that premise.
Robberies are pretty common, but this one, because it's so targeted, the only thing that was taken were the items that Joe had given Liam and a computer and a hard drive. That seems really suspicious. It seems like whoever went in knew exactly what they were doing and exactly what to take. When a computer and hard drive go missing, that sets off alarm bells and you wonder, okay, what's going on here? What does somebody want to keep hidden? Obviously, someone wants to hide something that was going on in that household. So right away, that's suspicious.
Meanwhile, aboard the cruise ship, the investigators look for clues to scrutinize Liam's movements on the night he disappeared. If they could only determine that once he went into his room with his family, that Liam never came back out, then there would be only one way he could have vanished into thin air, and that is if he went over the balcony rail, either accidentally or not. Is it possible one of Liam's family members is responsible for his disappearance? Or maybe Joe's brother, who is on board, and his girlfriend Samantha. Suddenly, everyone close to Liam that night seems to be a suspect. But who out of the group would want Liam dead, and why? And a bigger question, who could physically throw him overboard in order to kill him? And does the fact that he never left the room that night give investigators the ammunition to rule out Liam's death as accidental in nature? The police begin their questioning, first speaking to his father, William. William admits he blacked out that night, even though he doesn't drink alcohol. When questioned whether Liam was drinking, William confirms he was. The key, though, is that Liam didn't appear inebriated before reportedly feeling sick.
They started to question me about did I really pass out, because I said I just wasn't feeling well. It just seems strange that my stomach started to hurt a lot more after that glass of water. It's like something was in there that made me feel even worse.
William's story seems to check out with investigators. In fact, the water glass he was drinking from is a key piece of evidence of what made him pass out. On it are traces of Rohypnol, commonly known as the date rape drug. Investigators have also turned up traces of Rohypnol in a beer glass Liam drank from that night, which was discovered in his cabin.
So investigators find traces of Rohypnol, the date rape drug, on the glasses of Liam and William.
Typically, it's used as a predatory type of drug. It's used to incapacitate another person in order to be able to take advantage of them.
Then to have one of them disappear, that seems very shady to me. Also, you wouldn't normally mix it in a drink like that if you were taking it yourself. That almost seems like somebody slipped it in their drink without them knowing.
It seems as though both were drugged. Could Martha be the key suspect in her father's disappearance that investigators are looking for? By the time authorities speak to Martha, she has traveled back home and is now living with her mother. Local authorities question her about how Rohypnol could have ended up in her dad's beer glass and her grandfather's water. Martha tells the investigator that her father left that night to meet a woman. As for the Rohypnol, her dad was having trouble sleeping aboard the ship. He allegedly asked Corey and Samantha if they had anything to help him. One of them had given him the Rohypnol as a sleep aid.
This is really strange. People don't typically take that drug as a sleeping aid, which is what their companions are claiming, that these two men were having trouble sleeping, so they were given this drug for that. So you have to wonder who slipped this drug to them and why. It's still not clear. No one's taking responsibility for this.
Another key detail to Martha's story is the mystery woman and her involvement in her father's disappearance. He was seen speaking with multiple people on board. These people Martha didn't know and could be suspects. But if that's the case, his key card would have indicated re-entry at some point in the night. Is it possible this woman had an accomplice who killed Liam and tossed him overboard? The whole scenario seems random and completely vicious in nature, as though a murderous couple walked among the ship's guests and crew looking for the perfect person as their prey. But little does Martha realize, investigators have a hunch that Liam never left his suite once he turned in that night.
Electronic access card that allows access to your particular room. It has a chip built into it that stores information. That information is all stored on a database, and it's easy to track everywhere that card has been used.
There's evidence that the key card was used throughout the night. Someone was going in and out of that room. It had to have been Martha, but what was she doing in there?
The fact that she used it after his disappearance would certainly lead to questions being asked.
Was Martha angry enough with her father interfering with her love life to kill him? Or did the sleeping pills he received lead to a tragic accidental fall overboard? Someone seems to know what happened to Liam, and they're not talking. Liam has gone missing on a cruise ship, with investigators uncovering he was under the influence of alcohol and the drug Rohypnol the night he vanished. The investigator questions Liam's daughter Martha on his disappearance. According to Martha, after she left her dad's room, she went to stay with her new friends Samantha and Corey in their cabin. Again reiterating that her dad went out to find a woman that night. To investigators, Liam's death is beginning to look premeditated somehow, but they can't say for sure or by who. There are still others to speak with to understand if Martha had any involvement with her father's disappearance.
There's key scans on cruise ships, so if an investigation is done, the police can actually see which rooms were opened at what time. So we know that someone was going in and out of Liam's room several times during the night after he might have been in the water. Was that Martha? Was it someone else? If it was Martha, why was she going in and out of that room all night?
The police bring in Samantha and Corey to detail what happened that night and why they were on the ship in the first place. Both Samantha and Corey admit that everyone was drinking that night, with the exception of William. Both William and Liam were complaining of poor sleep aboard the ship. Corey apparently had a solution for that, namely what he calls sleeping pills he acquired before the ship left port. As for alibi that night, both Samantha and Corey retired to their cabin well before the time Liam is reported overboard. But why were they on the cruise? Corey's brother Joe paid for their tickets, an early birthday present for Corey.
Well, Samantha's a person of interest just for the fact that she had Rohypnol in her possession, which is very strange. People don't normally carry the date rape drug on them, so that instantly makes her suspicious. And Corey's a person of interest because he was the only one physically capable of throwing Liam overboard. So why would either of these people do something like this? Why would they kill someone? What's in it for them? What reason would they possibly have for doing something like this?
We don't have any remains. We don't have the actual person who's gone missing. We don't have the body. We have two people who have told us a story which is plausible. There's no evidence to show that what they're saying is incorrect or is a lie or a fabrication. The cruise ship has done what they felt was necessary in terms of conducting an investigation, and there's really no further information at this point.
Without a motive and no witnesses to their involvement, Samantha and Corey are free to go, shedding no new light on the case. Even if Joe bought the tickets for them, there's no definitive motive. The final related traveler to Liam is his cousin, Calum. Calum was the person who invited the group aboard the ship, thinking it would be a nice break from the pressures of life. He nor Liam paid for the trip, but it was bought by Joe, a man who was allegedly having a relationship with Liam's daughter Martha. Investigators uncover that Calum introduced Martha and Joe. Though Joe isn't aboard the ship at the time, he's the reason why all of them are there. When it came to the night of Liam's disappearance, Calum insists he was asleep in his cabin, leaving before Samantha and Corey. He seems innocent and is set free without charges. Time and again, investigators keep coming across Joe's name as the engineer of the trip Liam disappears on and is assumed murdered. The police move their investigation to Joe's apartment. His relationship with Martha and disagreement with Liam prior to the trip seem paramount to him being missing.
There's a lot of things pointing to Joe with the burglary, but it's all circumstantial. When you look at it, the only things that were missing from the house were all the gifts that Joe had given Liam, including the sports memorabilia, all the cards, and then a hard drive. Also, there was no forced entry. So even though there's nothing proving that Joe was the one responsible for it, it looks really suspicious.
Police come across handwritten notes by Joe where he tells Martha not to talk to investigators. Also, his internet search history on his computer details a search for the date rape drug. But what else investigators uncovered in their search remains a mystery, as a gag order is put on them by Joe's father, the owner of the residence.
Gag orders are when certain portions of an investigation aren't available to the public.
In this particular case, a lawyer could apply to the courts to have information kept quiet about an investigation until such time as it goes through the courts, and then of course it would become public. But while the investigation is going on, a judge could rule that no publication of any documents or information could be made.
So, with no definitive evidence against Joe, besides some suspicious search history and a concerning letter, he is free to go, never being charged. Released from suspicion completely. Was Joe angry enough with Liam to have him killed at sea? The evidence suggests he was completely unaware of what happened on board. So if not him, then how did Liam die? The disappearance of a mechanic from Brooklyn while on vacation remains a mystery, with no new clues arising to this day.
Cold cases are the absolute last thing you would ever want if someone in your family went missing or was murdered, because there's no resolution. And the worst thing for people is not even the murder or the disappearance, it's having no answers. So when you have a cold case, people go without answers, sometimes for their entire lives, for years. Unfortunately, with the way our justice system works, we just need so much proof. Even if the police are absolutely sure they have the perfect suspect, there's tons of circumstantial evidence, there's no one else who could have done it, you need to have so much evidence to go to trial that sometimes there's just not enough. Without a confession, without a body, it just turns into a cold case. And if no one comes forward and flips, there's really nothing that anyone can do.
As a final grasp at uncovering the truth, each member of Liam's travel group is asked to undergo a lie detector test.
I just didn't feel right about that. You're already nerved up about the whole situation, and to take that, you just don't want it to give you a false reading of what happened in this situation. So I was not comfortable with it.
In the end, William passes the test as telling the truth. As for Samantha and Corey's tests, both results come back as inconclusive. Caleb flat out refuses to take the polygraph, saying he has given investigators all the details he knows from that night on the ship. As for Martha, she quit school to join a volunteer aid group with plans to travel to Africa. Later that year, though, she quits the group. Allegedly, she's living in Las Vegas today with her roommates, Joe, Corey, and Corey's girlfriend, Samantha.
Caleb moved away to Colorado, and I still am a believer that somebody within the family did something to Liam. And you don't hear from them, but they have a motive. Liam didn't like Joe. Somebody felt that he was not to be in the picture and did away with him.
To this day, none of this has ever been proven, and the case remains unsolved.
The rails are designed to be difficult to go over. It's not something you can just stumble over. It's not something you can easily climb without being noticed. The fact he's gone over a rail is suspect. Accidents do happen, but accidents or events that occur surrounded by suspicious circumstances are often questioned, and they need to be questioned. At the end of the day, when you lack physical evidence and all you're left with are coincidences, which we would call circumstantial evidence, it's not necessarily enough to be able to level an accusation at somebody. So we're left with just an accident, as improbable as it may be. That's the fatal flaw with conspiracies, is that it relies on multiple people keeping their mouths shut. Frequently, when crimes like this are committed, not everybody has the same level of commitment to keeping your mouth shut. Eventually, somebody will say something.
You would think that if this was a group of conspirators, that eventually someone's going to feel guilty. Someone's going to have it weigh on their conscience, whether it's they're dying and it's a deathbed confession, or something would just trigger a confession, or maybe they would talk to somebody and that person would go to the police. If you think if more than one person knows about it, someone's got to flip at some point.
In your mind, you want some closure and just don't see it happening, but I truly hope that someday we will find out the truth.
Unsolved mysteries like this one are what keep people like me who love true crime awake at night. It's the unsolved mysteries that keep us wondering forever, for years, what happened to these people? Life is full of mysteries.